And you want a street fight? I break all the ribs in his body.
I'm waiting on this decision. I know I won the fight. No doubt about it. I gave him a lot of time. I shoot him off and back off instead of loading up. Man, it hurt me mentally so bad that physically I'm tired. Even today, they had me wait him. I reported since yesterday.
Trevor Berbick once said he was more scared of Don King with a pen than Mike Tyson in a ring. That confession tells you everything about what really haunted this heavyweight champion. Most fighters fear getting knocked out. Berbick feared something worse. He feared the people who could erase him without throwing a single punch. Before his violent death in 2006, 5 specific figures controlled different pieces of his life. One controlled his money, another destroyed his body, a third humiliated him publicly, the fourth exposed his limitations, and the last one took everything. This is the story of a champion who spent his career running from ghosts he could never escape. Don King was not just a promoter to Trevor Berbick, he was a nightmare dressed in sequins and bad hair. Berbick understood something most fighters learned too late. The real danger was not in the ring, it was in the contract. King controlled the heavyweight division in the 1980s through a system called option contracts. When a fighter wanted a title shot, King made them sign away their next 3 or 4 fights. Victory did not mean freedom, it meant deeper entrapment. Berbick watched it happen to everyone. Tim Witherspoon won a title and saw his purse destroyed by consulting fees and training expenses. Greg Page signed with King and left with pennies. Berbick knew the pattern. He knew the money was flowing, but it was flowing around him, not to him. This fear started in December 1981 during the drama in Bahama. Berbick was hired to beat Muhammad Ali in his final fight, but the real fight happened behind the scenes. King had a contract on Berbick. James Cornelius, a convicted felon promoting the event, refused to honor it. When King flew to Nassau to collect, Cornelius and his associates beat him badly. King ended up hospitalized. Berbick witnessed this violence. You might think seeing King hurt would empower him. It did the opposite. Berbick realized he was trapped between 2 types of power: street violence that could break bones, legal power that could ruin lives. He tried playing both sides. He signed with King but gave the contract to Cornelius. It backfired. He became a pawn in a war between criminals and corporate gangsters. By 1984, Berbick's fear had twisted into religious obsession. He could not sue King. He had no money for lawyers, so he turned to God. Reports from that time describe a bizarre ritual. Berbick would stand outside King's hotel room at 6:30 in the morning. He held a Bible. He chanted Psalm 91. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. This was not intimidation. This was desperation. Berbick believed King had stolen millions from him. Muhammad Ali believed it. Mike Tyson believed it. Tim Witherspoon believed it. But Berbick lacked the resources to fight back legally, so he tried to pray the theft away. He called King a wretched, slimy reptilian. He believed only divine intervention could balance the scales. The fear had broken something inside him. The depth of that fear showed itself before the Mike Tyson fight in 1986. Berbick was the WBC champion. He held the most valuable asset in sports, but he was terrified King would strip his purse. In a moment of panic, Berbick called King with a lie. He claimed he was pulling out of the Tyson fight to box Jerry Cooney instead. He threatened to walk unless King waived his usual deductions. King, afraid of losing the unification timeline, agreed. It was a rare win for Berbick. But think about what it means. A heavyweight champion should not have to invent fake fights to get paid. The bluff came from fear. Fear that he would face the most dangerous puncher on earth and walk out with nothing but brain damage. In the end, that fear proved correct. Berbick died with almost no financial legacy. The pen had done its work. If Don King threatened Berbick's future, Mike Tyson threatened his present. This was not the normal fear of a tough opponent. This was existential dread. By 1986, Berbick had wrapped himself in religious delusion. He claimed to be chosen by God. He called himself a spiritual warrior. Mike Tyson represented a reality that did not care about Berbick's theology. Tyson believed he was the reincarnation of Alexander the Great. He said he was the greatest fighter God produced. Berbick feared Tyson because Tyson's delusion was backed by violence Berbick could not match. Tyson did not just want to win, he wanted to mutilate. Tyson once said he tried to push the bone into the brain when he hit someone on the nose. That was not hype. That was intent. Before you keep watching, hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 5 figures you think Berbick feared most. Was it the promoter who stole his money? The puncher who destroyed his body? Or someone else entirely? Let me know what you think. Now, back to the story. Tyson openly admitted he wanted to kill Berbick to avenge Muhammad Ali. That added a layer of justice to the fight that terrified Berbick. He was not just fighting a 20-year-old contender. He was fighting karma. He was fighting the ghost of the man he had beaten in the Bahamas. On November November 22, 1986 at the Hilton in Las Vegas, that fear became visible. When Tyson connected with the final left hook in the second round, Berbick did not just fall, he disintegrated. His central nervous system shut down. He rose on instinct, legs made of rubber, and crashed into the ropes. Then he fell again. The referee caught him. This chicken dance became one of the most infamous moments in boxing history. It was the physical proof of total fear. The aura of the man of God was stripped away. What remained was a confused, concussed man stumbling under the lights. After the fight, Berbick could not accept what happened. His fear of Tyson transformed into denial. He started spinning conspiracy theories. He claimed he had been drugged before the fight. He claimed he was sick. He claimed the real boys who controlled boxing engineered his defeat because they needed Tyson to be the star. These were desperate lies from a man whose identity had shattered. He feared Tyson because Tyson proved that his God could not save him from a left hook. The Tyson loss turned Berbick into a punchline. For a narcissist like him, that erasure was worse than death. He spent the rest of his life trying to rewrite that night. He could never face the truth about the destroyer he had feared. If Tyson broke Berbick's body, Larry Holmes broke his spirit. The fear of Larry Holmes was personal and bitter. It was rooted in a decade-long feud that blurred professional rivalry and street-level hatred. Holmes was the Easton assassin. He had the technical skill Berbick lacked and the sharp tongue that dissected Berbick's insecurities. Their relationship began with a title fight in April 1981. Holmes dominated Berbick over 15 rounds. It was clinical. Holmes had one of the best jabs in boxing history. He snapped Berbick's head back repeatedly. The gap in their class was obvious. Berbick could not accept Holmes's technical superiority. He internalized the loss as a personal insult. He began to fear he would always be the opponent, the crude brawler to Holmes's master boxer. Since he could not outbox Holmes, he tried to outtalk him and physically intimidate him outside the ring. It created a cycle of humiliation that defined his middle age. The feud hit its worst point in 1991. Both men were past their prime, attempting sad comebacks. After a fight in Florida, Berbick burst into a press conference and launched a tirade against Holmes. He screamed that Holmes used his sweetheart to mess up his married life, Jenny from Jacksonville. He claimed he had proof and tapes. He blamed all his problems on Holmes. This outburst revealed a man in domestic nightmare. Berbick feared Holmes had the power to destroy his home life. Whether the affair allegations were true or the product of his unraveling mind, the fear was real. He saw Holmes not just as a boxing rival, but as a sexual force dismantling his personal sanctuary. He was terrified that Holmes was laughing at him, sleeping with his connections, undermining his authority as a husband. The confrontation spilled into the streets of Hollywood, Florida, in front of the Diplomat Hotel. Holmes tracked Berbick down and they began to brawl. The defining moment happened when Holmes ran across the hoods of two parked cars and launched himself into a drop kick onto Berbick. For a former heavyweight champion to be drop kicked off a limousine in a street brawl is the ultimate indignity. It is a move from professional wrestling. It is total disrespect. Berbick was left shouting to the police, "Larry Holmes kicked me and punched me right here in front of everybody." That quote is telling. It is not the roar of a lion. It is the complaint of a victim. Berbick feared Holmes because Holmes could reduce him to a child, tattling to authority figures. Holmes treated him with utter contempt. He refused to view him as a peer. Even after Berbick's death, Holmes offered no sympathy. He coldly stated, "God don't like ugly." Holmes remained the tormentor who refused to grant Berbick peace, even in the afterlife. The fear of Tim Witherspoon requires understanding the 1980s heavyweight hierarchy. Witherspoon was known as Terrible Tim. He was the boogeyman of the division. He had immense talent, a granite chin, and a style that was a nightmare for orthodox heavyweights. Berbick's fear of Witherspoon was professional. It was the fear of the high-risk, low-reward opponent who could expose his limitations without bringing the massive payday of a Tyson or an Ali. The roots of this fear lay in the training camps of Muhammad Ali. Both Berbick and Witherspoon served as sparring partners for Ali during his decline. It was in those closed-door sessions that the pecking order was established, far from the cameras. Witherspoon was known for punishing his sparring partners. He was technically sharper than Berbick and physically durable. Reports from the era suggest Witherspoon often got the better of the exchanges in the gym. For a fighter like Berbick, whose confidence was built on a fragile construct of invincibility, these gym wars planted seeds of doubt. He knew Witherspoon had his number. He knew the terrible nickname Ali gave Witherspoon was accurate. Berbick's career management was built on seeking high-profile names or beatable contenders. He largely avoided the dangerous uncrowned champions like Witherspoon, who lurked in the rankings. Witherspoon represented the grinding reality of the sport: hard punches, low pay, and bad decisions. Witherspoon was a fighter who, like Berbick, had been chewed up by Don King's machine. Witherspoon sued King for millions, alleging fraud and theft. That was a path Berbick was too fearful or disorganized to take effectively. Berbick feared Witherspoon because Witherspoon was a mirror. He was a reflection of what Berbick actually was, a talented but exploited fighter who was always one bad contract away from ruin. To fight Witherspoon was to step into a meat grinder, where the winner got nothing but scars. It was a fear of professional exposure, the fear that if they fought for real, the gym rumors would be confirmed. Berbick would be revealed as the lesser man. Ultimately, the person Trevor Berbick feared most was not a global superstar or a promoter. It was a 20-year-old man named Harold Berbick, his own nephew. This fear was the most primal and the most tragic. It centered on the violation of the one place Berbick sought sanctuary, his home. After being deported from the United States in 2002, following a conviction, Berbick returned to his birthplace in Norwich, Port Antonio, Jamaica. He hoped to find peace as an elder statesman, a returning king. Instead, he found a family at war. The fear was rooted in a bitter land dispute. Berbick believed the family property was his by right of his boxing success and financial contribution. His family, specifically his sister and her son Harold, believed otherwise. In the weeks leading up to his death, Berbick's paranoia reached a fever pitch. He told confidants and locals that he was being targeted. He feared for his life, not from boxers, but from his own kin. This paranoia was dismissed by many as the ravings of a punch-drunk fighter, but it was a rational response to the escalation of threats he was receiving. Berbick had previously been charged with assaulting his sister and breaking into her house. The violence was reciprocal. He was living in a war zone where the enemy slept next door. The fear was claustrophobic. There was no referee to break the clinch, no bell to end the round. He was trapped in a cycle of domestic hatred. On October 28, 2006, that fear became reality. It happened in the darkness of a church courtyard, a symbolic setting for a man who had spent years preaching on street corners. Harold Berbick, accompanied by an accomplice named Kenton Gordon, ambushed the former champion. They did not use gloves. They used a 2-inch thick metal pipe, multiple blows to the back of the head. Berbick never stood a chance. The iron chin that withstood Mike Tyson briefly and Larry Holmes was crushed by the betrayal of blood. The motive was a dispute over dirt and property. The banality of it highlights the tragedy. Berbick, who had fought for millions of dollars in Las Vegas, died over a patch of land in Portland. When police interrogated Harold Berbick, he showed chilling detachment. When asked if he knew the victim, he replied, "Yes, he is my father, brother." There was no reverence for the champion, only the cold elimination of an obstacle. Trevor Berbick's life was a tragedy in the classical sense. He was a man of immense potential who was dismantled piece by piece. His fears were not random. They were a roadmap of his destruction. He feared Don King because King controlled his survival. He feared Mike Tyson because Tyson controlled his legacy. He feared Larry Holmes because Holmes controlled his dignity. He feared Tim Witherspoon because Witherspoon controlled the truth of his ability. He feared Harold Berbick because Harold held the power of life and death in the one place he thought he was safe. In the final analysis, his arrogance, his delusions, his violence toward women and family were both the armor he wore to survive these fears and the weight that eventually drowned him. He was a man who spent his life fighting monsters, only to realize he was trapped in a room with them, and the door was locked from the outside. But there is a lesson here. Fear is not always irrational. Sometimes the things we fear are the things that will destroy us. Berbick saw the dangers clearly. He named them, he tried to fight them, but he lacked the tools, the discipline, and the support to escape. His story is a reminder that talent alone is not enough. That physical courage means nothing without financial literacy, emotional stability, and the wisdom to know which battles to fight. If you found this story powerful, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into boxing history. Drop a comment and tell me what lesson you take from Berbick's life. Was he a victim of the system or the author of his own destruction? Let me know what you think.